A call to order our Lander County Commissioners meeting, Town Board of Battle Mountain and Austin Board of County Highway Commissioners for March 28, 2019. If you would all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Kathy, would you lead us this morning?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now we ask that you might be sure and be cognizant of your cell phones and mute those for us, and then join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. Lander County Commissioners may break for lunch from 12 noon to 1:15. Any agenda item may be taken out of order, may be combined for consideration by the public body, and items may be pulled or removed from the agenda at any time. We will start with any commissioners' reports, and Art, I'm going to start with you if you have something for us this morning.
Yeah, I've had a couple of text messages from Ira Hansen concerning gun bills and anti-hunting and anti-trapping legislation. There's a meeting Monday morning at 8 o'clock in Carson City to protest the latest bill that they're going to bring forward. We have don't forget our meeting April 2nd for our Second Amendment position and our move on that. And our president was found innocent.
Thank you. Brian?
Nothing to report.
I have nothing. I have nothing.
Thank you. I just have one, and that is actually Kingston. I did attend the Kingston Town Board on the 21st of March. The St. Patrick's Day fundraiser for the fire department was again very successful, and they actually cleared $5,277. And the fire department is in full swing, and they are looking forward to a class on May 11th that the BLM is actually hosting. It's an 8-hour class, and it's tactical on wildlife fires. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and that's all about that. We are over to staff reports on meetings, conferences, and seminars attended.
First, I'd like to have Abby come up for a minute. So today's going to be Abby's last day as our community health nurse. And I did get your plaque, it wasn't finished, so I apologize. When it gets here, I'll get that to you. I just want to let you know that I appreciate what you did for the program, and I wanted to thank you for that, and I wanted to let the commissioners know. So we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Abby.
Abby.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to remind the commissioners we have a special meeting Monday to discuss budgets, CCP in particular. Monday at 1 o'clock is when it'll start. We continue to work on budgets. That's been pretty dominant over the last few weeks. Well, longer than that for Cindy, but I do appreciate all the work Cindy's done. After our April 11th meeting, April 11th at 1 o'clock, Wayne Carlson is going to be here, and he's going to do positive governance training for anybody that's interested. Wayne's from PoolPack. He's the founder of PoolPack. He's very, very knowledgeable in the area. So we've got that set up for April 11th at 1 o'clock, and I'm going to invite all the other boards and so forth to attend that training. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a clarification on our budget meeting, because I know we're over budget and we have to tune it up a little bit. But I have had some calls with folks saying, I see we're on the agenda again for grants. Do we need to be there again? And so I don't know. I guess we need a clarification. We're not doing a full budget with listening to everybody's explanations again. We've already done that. They don't need to come back for that. We'll go back through.
Well, they need to come. excuse me, I'm sorry, they should be here in case the board has any additional questions for them related to their grants and then our projects, our CCP projects.
Okay, so invite them to attend, but we're not gonna do the full budget workshop like we did
No,
before, is what
no,
I'm saying.
this is specifically for.
Only if we have a question.
Yes, this is specifically for grants and CCP.
Okay, because I know we're gonna be reducing a lot on CCP for
Yes.
sure, but the rest we're gonna look at, so.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, appreciate the clarification.
And I believe Cindy was gonna notify the people, or?
Yes, we already did.
Okay, she already has.
Okay, we are into public comment. For non-agendized items only, persons are invited to submit comments in writing and/or attend and make comments on any non-agenda item at the board meeting, if any, and discussion of those comments at the discretion of the board. All public comment may be limited to 3 minutes per person, again at the discretion of the board. Reasonable restrictions may be placed on public comments based upon time, place, and manner, but public comment based upon viewpoint may not be restricted. Any public comment? Okay, hearing none, we move to the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine, may be acted upon by the Board of County Commissioners with one action, without extensive discussion. Any member of the board or any citizen may request that an item be taken from the consent agenda, discussed and acted upon separately during this meeting. Consent agenda materials are available at the Lander County Clerk's Office for viewing, and copies are available for a nominal charge. Number 1, approval of agenda notice March 28, 2019. Number 2, approval of February 28, 2019 meeting minutes. Number 3, approval of March 14, 2019 meeting minutes. Number 4, approval of March 18th through March 19th, 2019 special meeting budget workshop meeting minutes. Number 5, approval of payment of bills. And number 6, approval of payroll change requests. Okay, we don't have any minutes, so number 2, 3, and 4 will come off the consent agenda. Number 5, approval of payment of bills, we are going to pull to discuss a few. So that leaves us number 1 and number 6, payroll changes on the agenda. If I could have a motion to approve those.
I'll make
So
a motion
moved.
to approve. I'll second.
Thank you. Kathy made the motion and Brian seconded. To approve.
No.
Oh, Judy? See, you're so soft over there. I'm so sorry.
We kind of stepped on each other.
I apologize. Judy made the motion and Brian seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? An aye for me. Thank you. Okay, with that, we're at the payment of bills, and there are some that we need to pull out. I'll begin with mine. It's check number 207202 for travel expenses for the NACO meetings and some EMS time. So if I could have a motion to approve check number 207202.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Kathy made the motion, Brian seconded. I'm looking at you.
I didn't move my mouth, I promise.
I'm gonna have to move Judy, I'm gonna have to move you next week. Judy made the motion, Brian seconded it, and I will recuse myself. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next one is for Judy, and your travel expenses are check number 209827. So if I could have a motion for 209827?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Brian made the motion and Kathy seconded. And Judy?
I abstain.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, and that passes. The next one is for Brian.
Yes.
202449.
Yeah, it's payable to my employer.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Judy made the motion, Kathy seconded it. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank
I
you.
abstain from it.
And that passes. Okay, thank you so much.
So I'll make a motion for payment of the bills, the remainder.
Second.
I thought we just did that. Didn't we do
No,
that
we
first?
just did, we did individual.
You're right, but I thought we did the first ones, 1 and 6.
I don't think so.
No?
Oh, this is not a good day. I hope it doesn't continue this way. Thank you. Judy made the motion.
And,
I second.
okay.
Brian seconded for number 1 and number 6 to be approved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay.
Actually, that was for 5.
I beg your pardon?
That was the motion to approve item number
No,
5.
not 6. We already did 1 and 6, we were approving 5, payment of bills.
Thank you. Number 1 and 5, please correct the record. Thank you. Okay, for number 1, we have update and information to the Lander County Board of Commissioners regarding the joint venture between Newmont and Barrick, presented by Mark Edatz, who is the general manager with Newmont, right?
Can I do it from here, or do I?
No, come on up, Mark, thank you. And all other matters properly related thereto. Welcome.
Thank you. For the record, it's EVATZ, not EVATS.
E-V-A-T?
Z.
E-V-A-T.
EVATZ, not EVATS, correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Z as in zebra, got it.
So again, first name Mark, last name is Evitz. I am the general manager for Newmont Mining Corporation's Phoenix and Lone Tree operations. Phoenix operation here in Lander County, Lone Tree in Humboldt County. And I wanted to take a few minutes just to get in front of you and share with you an update from the Newmont perspective, as I'm still an employee of Newmont. The joint venture has not been, joint venture agreement has not been finalized and signed, therefore there is still 2 separate businesses taking place, one under the Newmont umbrella and one under Barrick. So I don't speak for the Barrick folks, but I figured I could give you some insight as to how things are going with regard to the JV. Before I go there, I would like to cordially invite the commissioners and your friends and family to join us north of Battle Mountain this Saturday to plant 4,000 sagebrush seedlings in the Sheep Creek fire area, the fire that was caused by or initiated with the helicopter crash. And we're looking to have some a cross-functional group of enthusiastic folks in the field to help us put some sagebrush in the ground this Saturday. So I'd love to see you. We'll meet at the fairgrounds at 8 o'clock and depart from there. And it shouldn't take but about 4 hours, especially if we have a bunch of willing participants. So thank you for that. First of all, again, from the Newmont perspective, the joint venture, the initiation of the joint venture started a little over 2 weeks ago, and therefore it's still in a very youthful stage. There's a general agreement that was put together by the leaders of the 2 companies, by Barrick and Newmont, and that is the general framework of which all the other work to come up with a final agreement is taking place. And therefore, in the youthful stage, there's a lot of unknowns, as you might think, as the 2 companies compare aspects of what's really important to our employees, and that's wages and benefits. So they're doing comparisons in that regard. Another aspect of how many team members will be needed to run the overall joint venture, which will be, again, roughly a 61.5% ownership by Barrick and a 38.5% ownership by Newmont. The good news is the leader of Barrick, Mark Bristow, was very adamant in his initial address to all employees that from the frontline supervisor down to the hourly folks, all of those members will join the joint venture team, so all of them will have a job, which eliminated a significant amount of concern by our frontline employees, the most valued resource we have in both organizations. And that's done a lot to eliminate, obviously, that initial concern, will I have a job within the joint venture? So that's been eliminated. Obviously, the one that comes after that is around wages and benefits, and that's a very complicated, as you can imagine, a very complicated process of comparing side by side. But as publicly stated by the leadership of Barrick, there's by no means an intent to take the lowest common denominator of both. It's to come up with what we hope is something very special to drive the joint venture in Nevada. So at the sites for Newmont, we're continuing to engage with our workforce and keep them focused on the foundational piece of our business, which is safety, and then taking good care of the environmental compliance points and being good neighbors in the community. And then trying to show up and still have a good, fun approach to work. It's hard work, but it should be fun. We've got a great team out at Phoenix, Lone Tree, and the other sites, and so does Barrick. So trying to be productive in our jobs, and then, like I said, after that, being good in the community. So overall, the thing will continue to progress. I would anticipate over the course of the next several weeks, as the formal agreement starts to take more structure, that there'll be opportunities to share more definitive resolution around things that are important to the community, which obviously consists of our employees to a large extent. So I'll look forward to sharing that in one manner or another through Keith or others, so we can eliminate any potential confusion or worst rumors that are out there. As you know, in the lack of information, people have a tendency to make information up, and they typically look at it from a cup half empty perspective, and that's by no means the intent for either party involved in this joint venture arrangement. So I just wanted to come in front of you and share that very high-level overview. I know there's not a lot of detail to share at this time, but I'd be happy to address any questions. Again, what's out there as public record on many of on the two companies' website is generally the synopsis and as much detail as I can share, but if you want some personal insight that doesn't put me in trouble with either organization, I'd be happy to share that with you. So again, thank you for the time this morning.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
You got a projection on mine life?
Well, all the mine lives have obviously a detailed mine plan that supports mine life. Ours has already been stated at Phoenix Lone Tree, at least at Phoenix, to go through 2032. But that's based on a lot of different variables, including gold price and copper price at Phoenix. But the goal, one of the stated goals, again, under public record for this joint venture, is to realize significant synergies in how we run these two businesses as a function of taking down some of the fence lines that sit between some of the significant business units. Now, Phoenix Lone Tree is somewhat separate, but if you think about Twin Creeks and Turquoise Ridge and Gold Quarry and Gold Strike, there's opportunities there. And with that sustainability enhancement from synergies, you might think that we can leverage that into longer mine lives as a function of driving costs out of the business, just because we do our business more efficiently because we don't have that fence between us.
The Fire Creek mine, did anybody purchase that?
I can't comment on Fire Creek. I'm not aware of any information there.
Any other questions from the board? Any public comment?
And you're all invited to plant sagebrush too.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, thank you for
taking
having
your
me. I
time to
appreciate the time.
Come address us.
Good morning.
Number 2, actually, we're going to be taking out of order here. I'm going to go over to number 6 under Public Works. Discussion and possible action to approve or disapprove the reconciliation of Battle Mountain's Water and Sewer Department past water and sewer bills by resolution, and to write off past due amounts and all other matters properly related thereto.
Good morning.
Morning.
Bert Ramus for the record.
Tammy Dimitra?
Morning, Ken.
So I brought the expert in to give you guys the truth of what's happening, because I'm not very familiar with the billing or how it even works, so hate to put this off on Tammy, but Tammy's gonna answer the difficult questions here. As all I can say is that we have a list here of the bills. It's not exact, so we didn't put it on the agenda because we didn't want skewed numbers on the agenda. And I'm gonna throw out the number of what we've come up with, and this dates back, I believe, to 2005.
Somewhere around there, yes.
Okay, that was actually my question, because I didn't see any dates on it. So these are things that we have been billing incorrectly, and we are trying to make up for this? Is that what we're doing?
Correct.
Well, so the new system has picked it up. Our old system, it was missed in. And so the new system that we've switched over to the new billing system has caught these mistakes. And it's to the detriment of the county, and roughly, like I say, these are rough numbers, but 125,000 plus or minus.
So is that amount, so was that a fictitious amount, meaning like the customer really didn't owe that? And the computer pick that up, or is it really owed?
It's owed, but it's been in small amounts. For example, like, some of these charges were, instead of being a commercial charge, they were a residential charge for your sewer. So, like $38 a month instead of $45 a month. A difference of $7 a month. And then over long periods of time, that adds up in multiple accounts. All that keeps turning into bigger numbers.
Okay, so there's one up here that's like $67,000. Now you're saying that's what they owe us.
That's what they would owe us if we were to go back and bill them for.
Right, so we want to wipe everything out because it was our error of billing. So you're asking us to wipe out the $125,707, and you've already started billing them properly as of when?
We did corrections just this past month. We just transferred to the new system, and it was just caught last month. So all this month, we're still doing corrections with everything transferring from the old ADS legacy account to the new Tyler Encode.
So the letters went out explaining this and why they're being charged differently now?
No, we didn't.
We're waiting for determination from the board on
I
which
see, you're waiting
direction
for us
you'd
to
like us to go
forgive that, so that,
before we send out letters.
I guess I'm failing to understand why, if they use the resource, why we're writing it off, that's what I don't understand.
because they've owed it for the last 14 years and we haven't billed them. So now we're saying, oops, we made a mistake, you owe me this money.
Well, I have a question. Instead of just totally wiping it off the slate, can we consider trying to maybe negotiate something with them? If they're able to say, hey, yes, we still owed it, but instead of wiping it totally clean, that they may need to negotiate for at least portion of it to get it back instead of just totally taking it off.
Well, we're willing to do anything you guys like to direct us to, no doubt. In the past, if the mistake has been on the county side, we evade it. If it's on the customer side, say they don't fix a leak and we've detected a leak, then they own it. And for example, the big one that's $67,000 is the senior living across from the hospital there, and they had 4 dwellings, and then they added, well, without us knowing that they added more fixtures, they added more toilets, everything adds up, so that's why that number is so much bigger, is because they've added so much more that we weren't aware of in the billing system.
So how could they add it without us knowing about it?
Because they already have the connections, so now they're just flowing more into it, so they're paying for the water, but the sewer side of it, then they aren't paying for the additional fixtures, they aren't paying for
Which
everything
I
else.
respect that, but if we're doing inspections and on them building, then on our side, we should realize that they're putting in 4 more units, and that be considered for their billing. I mean, we know that they're doing it, we can't say that they're not doing it, because we have to do inspections of their plans and things like that. They just can't throw it up, the building's up and go along, they have to have approval to do that, correct? I'm not being that sarcastic, I'm saying, don't they have to, before they build anything more, come back through us to have that approved?
Not through our department,
But not through the county, anywhere in the county?
I believe through the building department, yes.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to put that off.
Well, no,
on
and
Anna's
I
not
don't
doing it.
either. I'm just
She's-
saying, the right hand and the left hand need to be talking at some
Yes.
point from the future on, so these things,
And I believe that was one of them that dated back to '05.
okay.
So once it's been missed that
Well,
long.
no, and I respect that. get
Well,
that.
I think the other thing, and I kind of agree with Kathy on that, but one of the considerations is, this is a really good example. They've been getting their bill and they had 4 more units and their bill doesn't increase. They should be kind of questioning what's wrong. There's something wrong there on their end as well. Is we've got twice as much units, but our bill hasn't changed, so I don't believe that they were totally unaware of the situation.
Bert, don't commercial hookups generally use more water flow than residential?
Typically, yeah.
Why wasn't that picked up? I mean, if there's a big, if there's an increase over residential use, then obviously, I mean, anytime my meter tripped 100,000 gallons, my bill reflected it.
Yes.
You came over and rectified it.
Yeah.
So if the meters are running higher, how come we didn't pick that up?
And I may be speaking out of turn, Tammy can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that some of these, through the rate changes, when we had them
Yeah.
percentage of rate changes over the last, say, 7 years, I don't think we've had any in the last 2 years, but prior to that, we had 5 years of steady rate changes. And I think some of them were missed in the old system. When it was put in, it was supposed to automatically upload to everybody's, and some of them were missed as whether they were commercial or residential, so it didn't, that rate change wasn't equal per se as what it should show. Does that make sense? I know I'm having a hard time explaining this, but.
Yeah,
Oh, that makes
it's a little bit difficult to understand how this was missed for so many years.
This is Tammy Dimitrov for the record. On some of these, if you notice, a lot of these are churches, and way back then, they could have been inputted as, way back like 2005 or whatever the year is, as residential, but it should not have been residential, it should have been commercial. So that's been caught on some of these. You know, we put them in now as commercial, so without this new system transferring over, we wouldn't have known to go back to look at that. Of course, that's been brought to our attention, so we can do this correction now. So that's part of it. The other thing is what Kathy Anschel just said is, I think would be from now on in the future that we could work with maybe the building department now in the same area, that if somebody's building something, then, and not, that's, you know, not her fault, then,
Oh, no,
then we
no,
could get with
no,
them and
just-
work together, so that way
exactly.
she can say, hey, Tammy, there's a building going up, or, you know, I can tell the guys,
Exactly.
you know, if there's already a meter there, normally they're supposed to come and sign up for water. There's not a meter in there, the guys know that they need to put a meter in, so that kind of comes to our attention, but if there's already a meter there, sometimes we don't know that, but, so anyway, so on some of these churches, some of these old mobile home parks, they were put in as residential also. They should be commercial because they're a business. So we caught, you know, a couple of these, like Capra Mobile Home.
Where is that?
It's across the tracks, I believe, North Humboldt. So it's across the tracks, or however Humboldt cuts across somehow, over there. I don't think she has very many trailers in there, so that's why there's
Yeah,
not so
okay, I
much
know.
there.
Off of Trescott.
And why a couple of these others, I really don't know why they weren't being charged correctly. Some of them are under the person's name, but they might have been like the duplexes or the 4 apartments complexes over by the Catholic Church. Those should be commercial. They probably back then were put in as residential because people were living there, but we caught those.
So, like I said, I think instead of just wiping the slate clean, that we at least try to make an attempt to negotiate with them, in the favor of the taxpayers, since that's, you know, the ones that were ultimately paying for it, that we
So
suggest.
is that I hate to negotiate because people may not feel like they're getting a fair number if somebody's a better negotiator than the other.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question for Ted.
Since, I'll just ask real quick, are you pretty sure this is all of it?
All of these, there could be some smaller ones that it was not caught through the Tyler, without going through 1,300 accounts and going one by one by one. You know, I don't know, there might be a couple little ones, but with the commercial codes, this is the bigger ones that we
Okay.
caught.
You had a question, legal?
Well, I have a question for Ted.
Ted?
Ted, just a legal opinion, if we, the county, were charging them incorrectly, what's your legal opinion on that? Can we,
My legal opinion is some of them are gonna be uncollectible,
yeah,
particularly the ones over 7 years.
okay,
They're gonna be uncollectible, and if they would negotiate, they'd be stupid too.
right.
Okay.
But some of them,
Noted, yeah.
the earlier ones will be collectible.
Would you guys like us to go back 7 years and pick up from there? And
No, just from here on out, just make sure that everybody's hooked up according to what they should be. I mean, you got 27, I think there's 27 here, out of how, you know, a couple hundred hookups, thousands, if you include residential, that's not too bad. You know, that's a small percentage, but, you know, as you move along, you become more precise with your work, and I appreciate this.
I still believe with Kathy that, I don't know so much as if it's a negotiated rate, but I feel we should try to collect something. If it's this 7 years forward, you can always negotiate on payment options, but I don't know so much as negotiating the price. But I really do feel that the county should try to collect on these.
The bad part about that too, as I'm sitting here rolling this through my head, if they don't pay, then there's no, really, you don't wanna take the collections and have that outstanding debt on them either, because it fell on us to begin, so it's kind of a catch-22 truly on, you know, what to do, because it really wasn't their fault, it was our fault, but, so.
And when you start negotiating too, even if you only went back the last year, you still have some who would pay and some wouldn't, and there goes the fairness, and that's not right either.
Yeah.
And we made a mistake, are we gonna own up to it, and what would you like to do?
Well, I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the reconciliation of Battle Mountain's Water and Sewer Department. Pass water and sewer bills by resolution to clear this up and move forward based upon the DA's legal opinion.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Art made the motion, and Brian seconded that. Do we have any other discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
So recorded, thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
So I have to boogie out here. If the commission wishes for me to stay, I will. I was supposed to go to Austin, but I know that there's another item here on the agenda that you guys might need.
You have enough time if we bump it up right now?
Well, if we can, I'm not sure if there'll be.
We're talking about number 11?
Yes.
I do have a problem with that because I know, if we're noted as number 11, and that would take some time, we may have some folks in Austin that would come in later, knowing it won't be at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Gotcha.
And I'm concerned about that, and they step in, you know, at 10 o'clock, and we say, oh, we did that number 2, so I,
Would 10 o'clock work? Could I stick around till 10 before I mean, or could we move that, say, roughly around to 10:30ish? That would,
hang on just a second. Michelle,
Yes,
have you spoken with anyone on item number 11 that has made note they would be coming in to listen to that?
yes, Lynn is actually here. She thought you guys were gonna start early too, so if you guys wanna do it at 10, I believe Ray Williams was gonna come in for that too.
Okay, the only other thing I'm thinking of, Bert, is that if you take off now, you'll be in Austin.
yes, and that's other
And we
option.
can wait for you to get to
There
Austin,
you go.
You
and
bet.
then do number 11 in Austin. How's that?
You bet.
Okay,
Thanks, Bert.
Yeah, thank you.
because I want everybody an opportunity in Austin, if they do come in, to be able to speak on that.
Yeah, I agree, they do
Thank you.
need input.
Travel safely. Okay, we'll go back to number 2. Update and information to the Lander County Board of Commissioners regarding Bureau of Land Management projects, presented by John Jervay, and all other matters properly related thereto.
Commissioner?
Is John here?
He's across the hall in he's across the hall in a BLM meeting
Oh,
and asked that he'll be over as soon as that meeting's finished.
okay, so you want me to hold up on number 2?
Please, yes.
I
Okay,
thought that meeting wasn't until 1 o'clock. The BLM meeting.
They started at 7 this
Are the
morning.
ranchers in there?
I don't know.
The who, Art?
It's the 10-year permit for
Right, yeah.
Argent.
I think they are, I thought I seen the vehicle go.
okay, we will come back to number 2 then, and go on to number 3.
Ron's got it. Ron can check it.
For Art, I believe that meeting starts at 1 o'clock with the permittees, Art.
Right, that's what I thought, 1 o'clock, that's what Dan told me.
It's 1 o'clock with the permittees, but they have nothing on the goal.
Okay, but John isn't here, so we're going to hold up.
Yes.
Okay,
He said he
number
will
3.
be over when the meeting's finished.
Thank you. Discussion and possible action on the administration of general improvement districts in Lander County, specifically Lander County Convention and Tourism, regarding the levying and collection of taxes by the county on behalf of the district, and the payment of these taxes to the district on a monthly basis to the treasurer of the district pursuant to NRS 318.240 or pursuant to NRS 318.098. For any elected or appointed officer of the county in which the district is located to provide assistance to Lander County Convention and Tourism upon written request. The officer shall furnish the requested assistance after a written agreement has been reached concerning the amount of money which the Board of Trustees shall pay for the assistance. See NRS 318.098 and all other matters properly related thereto. And I will go to our counselor to help us on that one and explain what it is we are actually doing.
Okay, Commissioner.
Hi, Rich.
What this is we'll just be in compliance with the law. When this was set up years ago, I believe it was the intent of the Fair and Rec Board, because they were called that at the time, to have the county assist them. Unfortunately, they didn't go through the procedure and make the paper trail. They didn't make an agreement. They didn't do anything they were supposed to do, and the county just basically absorbed all these duties. And over the years, most people thought they were employees of Lander County, and they're not. And so this is just a matter of coming in compliance. Technically, what most Fair and Rec boards or convention and tourism over the state do is the county collects their money. They have the power to levy room tax. They levy the room tax, county collects it, and sends the money to them at the beginning of every month. We have never done that. If we are going to act as a third party and do some of their HR stuff and do their accounting, then we have to properly make an agreement and have a paper trail, and that's what we're doing. And I'm looking at this as the elected officials that they've approached, along with the 5 county commissioners, asking for assistance. It's my understanding that Grady is going to tell us that he's going to be asking for the assistance, basically the same assistance we've been giving for the last 20, 30 years. But we're going to put it in writing, and I will help them do the letter. I will help put it in front of their board. I'll put it in front of this board. I'll make the agreement, and I'll do it with Keith's help in the most efficient way I can.
Got it, great.
I'm Grady Pierce, currently chairman of the board of the Lander County Convention Tourism. Obviously, as Ted pointed out, history prevails. I mean, prior to our board years ago, when I got on, wanting to try to develop a little bit more than what we were in the respect of, we were just meeting once a month, giving away monies, doing all the right things, but we thought maybe we could have more of an active role in convention tourism for the county, which we had brainchild the management of the Civic Center, but that left us with a loop that we needed to hire, per se, a director, or we needed to hire somebody to run the Civic Center for us. Because up until that point, the only person that worked for this board was already, per se, a county employee, like Leanne Gandolfo, when she was with building and planning, she was our secretary. You know, and then it's been Becky Murphy for numerous years, which was already a county employee. So it was like she was just getting a little extra check for working nights. But when we brought Rogine in to be the director of the Civic Center and to help us manage it, facilitate it, promote it, an issue similar to this had came up. But at that time, I don't recall there being any issues, because at that time, the same thing, the only thing different was going to be was we were going to now employ a non, per se, county employee. You know, we're just gonna interview, do some hiring, and then we would pay that individual, which obviously Lander County took care of our financing and our collection. So bring us to today's, we now, through some good information obtained, we need to come before you and ask for your assistance in continuing handling our financing in regards to, you know, room tax money sent to the Treasury Department. You know, it gets deposited, it goes into our line item. When we pay a bill, it goes to finance. Somebody in finance pays that bill from our line item. The employee side, payroll obviously takes money out of our line item and pays insurance, which I believe we fell under some type of umbrella of county insurance in regards to, which helped us obviously be able to provide a better premium, or the best you can get under that umbrella versus going out privately and getting the insurance. So I am wholeheartedly hoping that we can work through this, and as Ted mentioned, make a paper trail for the safety of the board in years to come, that, you know, they have the commissioners' support, the county support. And yes, in this day and age, fees are always attached to, there's some type of service fee. That's not even an issue at this point. We just need to be able to get back on track through the paper trail.
And Commissioners, for the record, the fees are gonna be minimal. The statute's explicit that the county can't make a profit off them doing their third-party representation. It's just what it costs each individual employee for the time they're putting in to do this.
Okay, so let's see if I have this correct. We're basically leaving everything exactly as it is, except when we created this board, we did not do the proper paper trail and agreement. So now we are going to do the agreement. We will be charging you a small service charge, whatever it costs us to handle those things, and everything else stays the same.
Quite correct.
Is that it?
Yeah, boy, I'm usually the wrong person to speak. But obviously, we need to ensure in this that, it's gonna take Ted to do some misery, because from what I've read, our employees going to need to, we're gonna need to, you better explain that, Ted.
Well, it'll all
In
be part
regards
of the
to-
agreement.
Right,
Agreed,
in
right,
regards
so
to
that's
employee
okay.
though.
It's
Yeah.
gonna all be
Employee.
part of the agreement. They're gonna be, under NRS 318.180 and 318.185, their board has the power to hire and retain agents, employees, servants, engineers, attorneys, accountants, anything they wanna do. But then there's the other option of asking the county for help. And that's all we're waiting for is him to say, that's what we're gonna do.
That's what I would like to do.
And there we go.
And,
Okay.
And yes, I'll be the first to admit, I do not know government HR. I'm only been from the private sector. So I think I got a learning curve to get on. But yes, we would like to be able, whether our employee has PERS, doesn't have PERS, is the future person gonna be able to have PERS? That's all yet to be decided.
They're able to have PERS. We've talked to PERS. We've
Okay,
even talked to our insurance broker, Keith has, and there's a way we can facilitate that too,
yes.
at a more inexpensive cost. But they cannot be listed as county employees.
Right,
But they
that's,
don't need to be, according to the broker.
no, that's true, and a lot of other counties handle it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
The only key is we didn't have the written
No,
agreement.
correct.
And,
correct,
and the nominal
that's-
charge, so.
That's why
Okay,
we're here is.
Are we clear? Do you have any questions on that?
I do
This
have a
thing-
question.
This clears it up, Ted?
Yes.
So because I'm now on that board, do I need to abstain from that?
Yeah.
No,
Do you
why
vote?
would she?
Do I
Yeah, she
vote?
votes.
No, do you vote on that board?
You haven't voted yet.
I've only attended one meeting,
Right.
so I just wanna put that out there, cause I don't know.
If there's no
I vote on
pecuniary
pool lot
interest,
stuff, and I'm part of pool lot.
Okay, well, I just wanna make sure that I know.
No, at this point,
No.
there's no conflict. I mean,
Okay.
you may take a vote here that may conflict you out in the future on a vote,
Okay,
but you certainly, you'd have to do that vote by vote
all right.
to see if there's
I
conflict.
just wanted to make sure.
As long as you or a family member or family and like person doesn't benefit from your decision, you're
Okay.
safe.
All right, very good.
So
Am I
I just
right?
wanna make a comment that I'm having an issue with the service fees. We've been doing this for so many years. We can do the agreement, just so that we clean things up, but I really don't see the benefit of charging any kind of fee.
I think that's what we've been missing, is we were supposed to.
It's set by
do that.
statute.
NRS is set
Commissioner,
by
I
statute.
don't believe that a county commissioner in the state of Nevada can intentionally, not follow the law.
Okay, so I misunderstood that then, counselor, that we have to charge a fee then.
Yes,
Okay, so I
it
misunderstood.
says shall, Commissioner, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be, but that's the problem with this, otherwise, if we could just waive it, I would have put that in front of you.
Kinda goes back to the old dollar a year deal. I'm
Well,
not
and
influencing anybody, I'm just saying, right now, we as a board want to always feel connected with our county commissioners, is we're not, even though we're a district separate doing our thing,
we can't leave our fellows behind. I mean, we're all one.
But Judy, in clarification, we can't make any money on it. We're
Right.
only going to charge the time that it takes us to do these certain things, so that's all.
Well,
It will be
we've been
minimal.
doing it for free for ages. As Grady said, let's charge them $1 a year.
Going against the NRS.
Okay, we
So
were
we're still
once you
charging.
note- Once you note it, once you note that there's an error, you can, from that point forward, are not allowed to.
That's where the ethics come in on taking a vote to ignore a Nevada law,
Exactly.
once you're aware of it.
And I understand that.
I'm not being argumentative, I'm just, you asked me a question, I'm pointing it out.
Are we ready for a motion?
Well, I don't know. And I'll make the motion that we, do as they asked and,
Instruct Ted to do the agreement?
instruct Ted to do the agreement.
Yes, the motion should say, if and when the Convention and Tourism Board asks the county or the elected official for assistance, that the elected official will, we have the board's approval to give all the assistance necessary. And do up an agreement and submit it to both boards.
Okay. I make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Kathy made the motion under the direction of Ted with assistance. Thank you. Seconded by Brian. Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Grady. Back in your
Thank you.
court, and we're going to get this straightened out and handled.
Another, or just a quick question. Will I come back with the agreement, or is that?
What I will do is I will get with you guys and we'll do up an agreement. I'm still finding, I want to be specific on
Yes.
on our accounting, and I want to get the information from the insurance and on PERS. The PERS and the insurance and the accounting are the three important parts. Then I'll put something together, you can take it in front of your board, and
Okay.
I'll put it in front of this board.
My last question is, obviously this kind of transpired when we went to hire our temporary person for the year that begins to help with the bike races, the charter tournament, so on and so forth, to help our director. And that person, I don't believe, was able to be hired.
You can certainly do a independent contractor until we get this straightened out.
She was hired,
She was?
yes, she's hired and she is in jail.
Liz, you need to come up for your comments, please.
Just to clarify, Elizabeth Jones, she was hired and she is in the payroll.
Okay.
Perfect.
When was that?
She's been working since the 14th.
Okay, thank you, Liz. All right, then, I'm out.
Thanks, Dave.
You guys have a
Thank you,
great
Grady.
day. The house is kind of small in there.
Number 4, presentation and information presented by Brad Bogoski regarding the ideas for the Nevada Central Railroad and all other matters properly related thereto. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners, for your time. I really appreciate this opportunity to show you a bit about some really cool piece of history we have in this county and maybe take it forward and see how we can benefit all of our lives and tourism and whatnot. So just on that first slide is a view of the railroad bed in the Reese River Valley that just goes off to infinity. So pretty cool, and it's great to go exploring during the winter time to see the contrast of the light and the land. So I wanted to give you, just introduce myself. Who am I? Why am I sitting in front of you today? Give you a brief history of one slide of the railroad, just so we all have a good understanding of it, and actually take you on a little pictorial ride, so we know where things are, what they look like today, and places you've seen but you didn't know are part of the railroad. Give you an idea of what I have, what I've thought of, how we can develop it for the county, where I'm at in that process, and take any questions and see if I have any answers for you. And then where do we want to take this next as a county? So my first name's Brad, last name's Bukowski. It's a Polish name from the Chicago area. Chicago has the most Polish folks outside of Poland, so you'll see skis everywhere in Chicago. I'm a 3-year resident of Battle Mountain, and glad I got out of Chicago and that area, so really enjoy living there. I was born and raised in Joliet, Illinois, and lived in Chicago and Joliet most of my life. I have lived on the East Coast and in the Bay Area for work a couple years. Got a good education, I've got a great job where I can work from home, and as long as there's a good internet connection, and that's a separate meeting. And you can look up more information on me on the internet, just Google my name if you need more questions answered. So let's jump right into this. I wanted to give a brief history of the railroad. Its whole existence came into being because a Pony Express rider discovered some silver, and within a year or two, Austin had 10,000 people living there.
Excuse me, Brad,
Yes?
your statue,
Oh, yes.
you want me to go get it?
You want me to bring that in?
I can go get it if you'd like, and we'll set it up here for everybody
It's
to
heavy.
see.
And
Go
be
ahead and
careful with the
continue.
little labels on it, so. I've made a little exhibit of the railroad from various things I found all over the place and on eBay, so. Hopefully maybe the museum or somebody could use it in the future. But wanted to create some public awareness about it. All right, so given the number of people and the silver that was discovered in Austin and the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, which is 150 years this May, there were ideas floating around to get that ore to the Transcontinental Railroad to be shipped to various markets throughout the U.S. And the railroad between Austin and Battle Mountain was thought for a number of years. In 1879, it was incorporated and completed in February of 1880. And once again, its primary purpose was to carry silver, gold, and copper ore to Battle Mountain to transfer to the Transcontinental Railroad. It's a heavy one. It was a 3-foot gauge railroad that went for 92.178 miles on the main line. It had sidings that were parallel and at an angle to it for about 3.22 total miles. It crossed little streams and at torrential Reese River, 66 timber trestles were created that it ran over. It had its tumultuous life. It was sold, foreclosed, reorganized a number of times. Had its share of disasters. So, and I'll cover that in a moment. Floods washed out several miles of track. Fires back then, the same ones we deal with today. Derailments, cash shortages. And it struggled, but it survived for 58 years. In 1938, it went bankrupt and was sold for scrap. So, not much remains of it today except the railroad bed and some scattered railroad ties. I wanted to take you on a brief ride through the 1899 timetable, some slides, some pictures, you'll see, just to give you more information. This is an actual ticket that I found on eBay for the railroad, so pass that around, please. So if you notice, it's hard to read, but in the lower left corner, the president of the railroad was J.G. Phelps Stokes of the family who owned Stokes Castle. So the railroad ties in quite a bit of history throughout the county over the period of 58 years. So we started in Battle Mountain at 7:30 in the morning. The original depot is right at Broad and Front Streets. We hit a blazing speed of 20 miles per hour. And we end up at Lewis Junction at the first stop. You can see a triangular junction off to the right. That railroad goes to Lewis Canyon. It was the Battle Mountain and Lewis Railroad. Great piece of history there when gold was discovered. The tracks were laid for that railroad to get that gold ore to market. Continue south down the left, you'll see some additional sidings along the way there, those white lines that go up and down parallel to the main line. And continuing down on the tracks, we go to our second station, Dillon, which has a dilapidated rail car that was either used for storage or an office or some kind of shelter. And in the 1930s, the Civilian Conservation Corps put a well in for the cattle that graze there currently, and back then also. So, and what remains is a windmill and some of the water troughs for the cattle. And throughout the whole site is scattered copper ore. Really cool. Go check out. Pick up some copper ore. Along the way, you've got great views of Mount Lewis, and you can see on the right, you can see embedded railroad ties that still exist at that site. Right. Let me continue on to Bailey's. This is where the railroad crosses Nevada 305, a tenth of a mile south of mile marker 69. So next time you're driving, see mile marker 69, throw on your brakes, and you'll be able to see the railroad go off to infinity in both directions there. And then continuing down the railroad, we come to what I've found in a number of historical publications. This site was called Walters. You've seen that stone house on the right as you round the curve there. That was a popular stop for recreational activities throughout the 58 years. The railroad was right immediately to the left of the highway as you pass that point. And the second to last stop is Austin Junction, another triangular junction. Off to the left, the railroad goes a bit towards Jacobsville, and then to the right, it goes to the terminal in Austin. It took 5 hours and 40 minutes to travel that. And there currently is a historic site there for the round table. And we can see in the middle of the picture the actual depot and the mills that are still in existence behind it today. So, very cool piece of history here that ties Battle Mountain and Boston together. Right, so in my weekends of exploring, I thought, this is great. We should be able to enjoy this, have a bike trail, something like that. So I was having ideas about bike trail, like I said, hiking, off-highway vehicle kinds of trails, campsites, historical interest sites along the way. And how can we use this to make the public aware, give them a sense of pride in their history here? How do you get the children engaged in their history, like on a field trip at high school, to go out and learn about the railroads and the various sites and mining activities that have gone on in the past? How do we protect what we have for the future? For instance, that stone house at Walters, filled with graffiti, people are vandalizing it. How do we protect it? How do we use this if it develops into something as a little hat and a feather in the hat for Lander County for industrial and other economic development to woo companies here, if you will. Promoting ongoing sustainability of the county, whether how small it is. We're going to get some tourism between Ely and Carson City along 50, folks who have railroad interests, who want to spend time biking with their families, whatever. So how do you pull more people, more funds, economic resources into the county? And I'm thinking this could add a little bit to that. And then it could also link together and promote other facilities in the county. The Shoshone OHV Trail, the Copper Basin Trails. There's some petrified rocks, petrified wood up behind the McCoy mines. There's a couple ghost towns. There's all kinds of cool things you just have to go out and look for in the county, and this could help actually promote all that. And once again, I said I'm from Chicago, and there's a couple examples that I thought which made me think this is feasible. We could do something with this. And one of them is an Illinois-Michigan Canal, a 96-mile ditch that ran from the Illinois River to Chicago, crossing all kinds of private land, that the federal government came in and put together trails for OHV, hiking, picnicking, and it also drew tourism to the little towns along the way, restaurant life improved, motels, kind of thing. So that's one example. And Tom, the car wash owner, made me aware of the route of the Hiawatha Scenic Bike Trail. This is opening up in May in Idaho, and once again, it was a railroad that has been converted to bicycle hiking paths. So it looks pretty cool, and it draws people from all over into those areas. So I have this idea that I just wanted to share with you. I haven't done much more work with it. I haven't spent any money on it, other than putting that together, because I got obsessed and thought that would be cool to do. Right? So in the business world, I go through a 5-phase process in committing resources, money, time, people, to a project, and it goes through 5 gates. And I'm personally right now in this little appraise stage. Is this something that we want to do as a county? If it is, we could take it to another level and get down to more detail. I would be happy to look at all the land ownership along the way, see what kinds of constraints, issues we have, put that all together, formalize some ideas, work with BLM on getting cost estimates and things like that. I've talked to friends, neighbors, business owners. I talked to the executive director of Tourism Authority, the BLM public relations gentleman, Emily's husband, and field management personnel there. I've also talked to Mark Amadei's office, Mr. Martin Harris, because I immediately went to the federal government. Oh, you got to come in here and do this. And they're like, whoa, no, we're the last step in the process. So if the county wanted to do something with this, they would have to put together a resolution, give it to Mark, get the federal government to fund it, and just leave it at that for right now. Everyone's given an initial thumbs up. It's, next phase would be to take it forward and see what kind of constraints we have and what kinds of things we could come up with, right? So if you have any questions.
Well, first of all, Mr. Bukowski, thank you. I think it's probably one of the most complete
Presentations.
yeah, well, he says presentation, one of the most complete histories of the railroad that I have seen, and it's really exciting. A couple things though. Number one, of course, we just have you on as a presentation, so we wouldn't be taking any action. It's
No,
just
right.
it's just information and what the board wants to share with you. But one of the things that I would say is you certainly at some point need to bring it back to us for a resolution if it goes that far. But I just, on a personal basis, rather than having the county run with it, I would like to see you go with it with the Commission on Tourism, which means you would present it to, we have 2 territories involved in our county. And it would be the Cowboy Territory, which handles Highway 80, and then it would be Pony Express Territory, which handles Highway 50, because you're gonna be running between the 2. And if they took on a project such as that, and we do with bike trails and things, then we have all kinds, we even have state grants for OHV vehicles that we can apply for. But what area, who's going to do it is what I'm saying. And if you're still willing to spearhead it, I think starting with those 2, to get your feet on the ground and get a start, and then I think at some point, like I said, it needs to come back to us,
Right.
probably to know where we stand as a county. But I can't see us taking it on and running with it. But I think it's an excellent idea. Anytime we can do something like that and preserve history. And I love the tickets. My goodness, what kind of pristine condition.
Yeah, wasn't it? It was $49.99. I ended up getting the bid on, so.
Unbelievable. Well, what I am going to do, and I see you have something here that you're giving.
Well, I personally made that, and it's been against my wall at home. If the museum would like it.
You know, I'm sure she's gonna say yes, but we have a museum in both parts. So I guess what I would say was, could we share it? Could we share it between Battle Mountain for, one summer and then Austin for another summer or something like that, and move it back and forth? But I am going to give them this presentation, and I would like a copy of the tickets, if you could maybe stay after or meet with somebody in the administration building that would copy that to go with that, as I give it to the museum in Austin.
Brad, could you tell us about that, Rob, there?
Yes, sir. All right, excuse me. All right, so my whole idea developing this was to give it a story. Why did this piece of wood and this metal all come into existence? It was down here with the silver ore at Austin, right? So, and then you travel up Battle Mountain to the old depot here to transfer it to the Southern Pacific Railroad. This is a fish plate, that's what it's called. It matches the two holes in each rail and holds the rails together.
wow.
So, so this mocks the 1899 timetable, right? Starting at 7:30, mile 1, next stop 8:07, mile 11, and so forth, right?
Very good, very cool.
Very,
And
very
this is a
nice.
relative kind of shape of the railroad from Battle Mountain to Austin.
So do you know Lori Price from our
We
museum?
just met this morning, I
Okay.
did see her on an episode of Wild Nevada.
Well, we all thank you if you're going to donate that to both of the museums. I
Right.
think that would be wonderful.
Here's a piece of copper ore from Dillon, so.
One thing that I would like to know is what the ranchers think.
Well, exactly.
And, you know, we're pretty private with our lives. And, you know, you mentioned the Shoshone OHV trail. That's very controversial.
I heard it was.
Very controversial. And if you've been around here maybe for another 10 years, you would understand how controversial and why. So I want to know from the ranchers if they think this is a good idea.
Exactly. And that's where the next phase would go. You know, what are those constraints? What roadblocks do we have? Does one rancher allow it? The other rancher doesn't. So how do we work with that? Right? How do we continue to have the multiple use of the public lands? Right?
If there's a 2-track through private property, it's available to the public. That's already been established in Nevada. Story County went to federal court and got that established. But I just want to hear from the ranchers.
Yes. Yeah, good point, sir. Yeah.
Alright.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead, you finish what you're saying.
But as this process, I would look to the county to have public hearings or get feedback in these kind of situations also.
So anybody who should go, that does any type of biking should go on and look at the Hiawatha Trail, and it is downhill. They take you up with your bikes and you ride 15 miles down, but it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, and he's absolutely right. It's an old rail, it's absolutely, just Google it and you'll be amazed. And so I think something that Lander County, like my brother's in a cycling club, and there's 1,000 people in that cycling club, and every year they travel around the United States doing different things, and they put on rides for different things like ALS. They did a 68-mile ride last year for ALS. And I think that if this would move forward, this would be because it would also benefit the convention and tourism, like she had said, and it both ends because you're going to get it here at this end and there at that end. If this is something that can come to fruition as under the biking, because there's a huge amount of people. The part is just like Art said, on private property, you don't want people destroying, because you're going to always have people who are going to destroy stuff, so it's, you have to kind of balance it out. But that, I think it would be a phenomenal bike trail. I'd rather see it a cycling trail than a motorcycle trail or anything else, because it really is a cool ride. Just driving from here to Austin is a beautiful ride.
Oh, yeah.
So I think bike
And now,
trailing.
driving from here to Austin, knowing this, you're gonna stop at mile marker 69 and check out the
Right,
railroad.
exactly.
Right, you can check out the stone house again, right? So, exactly. So, if something came to fruition trail-wise like that, what can you do with it as a county? So now you got another asset. Can you have a marathon, Battle Mountain Marathon? Can you have an Austin Trail Run kind of thing?
You can do horseback for
Whatever,
anything.
yeah.
You
So
know,
it
there's
opens
a lot
up more
of- yeah.
possibilities that you could introduce for tourism, for recreation, things like that.
So yes, very
I'm
nice.
going to open this up for public comment if there's anybody that has any comments.
I think it's a wonderful idea.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, anything else the board would like to share?
Let's take a break.
Thank you, Mr.
Well, thank you.
McCluskey.
I just wanted to mention, that is engine number 2 of the Nevada Central Railroad at the California State Railroad Museum. It's in perfect condition there. So So next time you're in Sacramento, stop at the museum and check out the train that ran up and down the railroad.
Sacramento has a lot of things from our area, yes.
So you're from Juliet, huh?
Joliet.
You know Jake and Elwood? I had to.
But I've been to where they've been, yes.
I had to.
Austin, we're gonna take a quick break.
All right.
Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much, Commissioners, appreciate your time.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
And I see Mr. Shervy is with us, so we are going to go to item number 2, update and information to the Lander County Board of Commissioners regarding Bureau of Land Management projects, presented by John Shervy and all other matters properly related thereto. Good morning.
Good morning, John.
Morning.
Thank you.
Hey.
I don't suppose this was sent to Austin?
No, I didn't have, it was not prepared for the, for your handouts, so this is just the first time anybody's seeing it.
Okay, Austin, I'm sorry, I'll have to bring it down to you for the records, but I don't have anything, do you want to see if we can try and fax it? We will try and do that for you.
Okay.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Commissioners. Good morning. Thank you for the flexibility. My name is John Shervy. I'm the field manager for the BLM Mount Lewis Field Office, the northern part of pretty much the northern half of the Battle Mountain District. I've been trying to meet or participate in a commission meeting periodically, mostly to update the commissioners on various projects throughout the year, projects that we have planned, or any projects that are ongoing. Tried to schedule something earlier, but due to our shutdown, we're just now getting underway and doing this. So there's a number of important projects that I think it's worthwhile presenting to the commissioners, providing an update. This pamphlet includes a lot of those projects, majority of them throughout the district, so that of course includes Eureka and Nye County. Most important, I think, to the county are our ongoing mining projects. They've got a tremendous impact, positive impact to the community. We all know that recently the Greater Phoenix Project was approved back in September. We continue to work with Barrick on ongoing management of that project, and also to respond to any changes they may have. That's oftentimes that we see amendments come in. There's nothing planned as far as another expansion goes right now, but the potential is always there. Also important to the county is the Barrick projects, the Cortez Hills area. We've been right now there's the Deep South project that's the EIS, the NEPA document, the National Environmental Policy Act requirements for environmental analysis. That's been out for public review, the draft EIS. The public comment period, I believe, is done or almost done. So that means as far as the schedule goes, we're looking for a approval of that project sometime in probably the spring or early summer. Also part of the Barrick project is the Gold Rush project. They've been working with us for a number of years on a pre-plan. That's to the north and northeast of the Cortez Hills. That is just over the Cortez Range in Eureka County, but it does have a large influence on the longevity of that whole complex of operations. Barrick has a project, the old Robertson Mine, which is in the old Tenabo Townside area. We've been talking in some preliminary discussions with an expansion down there as well, so that might be a upcoming project. Also, the Mount Hope project is entirely in Eureka County. It's just north of Eureka, but it does provide some potential as far as employment goes. That's been a project that's been under litigation for a number of years, appeal and litigation, and we've been dealing with that. We're also, by the courts, we were required to go out with another environmental document that's out right now for public review and comment. So we're hopeful that one gets completed and wrapped up here within the next couple months. Also in Eureka County, again, that's supporting the mining industry is the Gibellini project. We're underway on that. It's a vanadium mine east of Eureka. The Gold Bar project in the Old Roberts Mountain is also Eureka County, but there's going to be probably some likely influence on Lander County as well. That's underway, and as far as I can tell, it's been a very successful project. The Fire Creek project is in Lander County. They've been under operation for a number of years. We've been talking with them as far as expansion goes, which would add mine life to it, not necessarily additional employment opportunities. Also part of the in your handout here, we bring up some of the efforts we've been making on our permitting process, and the Trump administration has put some requirements on us to take a hard look at streamlining our NEPA process. It is a very cumbersome and long process to get through, but we have taken a hard look at trying to streamline that as much as we can. We've had some success on cutting timeframes down. We've got a lot of projects, so the more efficient we can be, the better. It's been looked at quite a bit our process has been looked at the Washington level. We even had a Deputy Secretary of Interior come out and visit with us, David Bernhardt. He's also now been nominated to be the next Secretary of Interior. He was very interested in how we were doing business out here, and he came out and met with us several months ago to learn how we were doing it. He was very impressed with it. But what that means to the county is that when we have these new projects under the process that we've been working under, is that we'll be involving the county much sooner in these projects. So there'll be some outreach by us, and we'll solicit involvement by the county, and what the extent possible, we'll leave that up to the Keith or the commissioners on how you'd like to be involved in these future projects. But there'll be a continual invite to a number of any of the projects that we have going on in Lander County. Also, moving to the renewable side, we've been working very hard with the permittees and all the stakeholders in the agenda allotment in the Battle Mountain Complex. We're at the end stages of those reevaluation of those grazing allotments. We're hopeful that those will be decided here in the next couple months and moving forward onto other priority grazing allotments. The other ones in Lander County are toward the Upper East River as far as priority goes and reevaluation of the allotments. Also, we've got a part of an allotment between Austin and Eureka. Part of it's in Lander County, the Willow Ranch allotment. We're doing a national pilot project on that allotment as far as evaluating it and trying to implement some flexibility with the permittee. So that's an ongoing project, and we'll continue to keep the county updated with that. We all know our Wild Horse and Burro program has been, we've been dealing with a lot of overpopulation of horses. Throughout our district, we've got about 3,000 AML, which means all the horses in our district. The environment could hold about 3,000. We're well over that. We're right around 9,000 to 10,000 horses. So we're very limited on managing those. The the Washington office directs our priorities on that. The highest priority in our district is the Fish Creek Horse Management Area, which is right around Eureka. Hopefully we'll be doing a gather around there in the fall or winter time. Our recreation program, as you know, we've been working on the Mill Creek Campground since it was burned. We've had tremendous success on so far on rebuilding. There's a lot of rebuilding to do. That's what we're under right now. We're rebuilding what was there. We spent some time last fall, early fall, to plant trees, and we've had a good success with the trees that we've been planting. We're still ongoing as far as the infrastructure goes, rebuilding that. Also part of that was an expansion. We would like to expand that campground upstream about another 80 acres or so, or another 80 acres, which would essentially double the size of the campground. We're still working on that. We've got our own permitting process that we've got to follow, but that's still ongoing. However, the golf course has been a higher priority for us. We've been working on that. There's been a lot of work done on that, trying to trying to work with the land transfer into the county's ownership on that. So I'll keep you updated as much as we can on that, but we have done a lot of internal work on that,
That's big
going to the
for
next.
the county. We can do a lot more with the golf course if we get that done.
Absolutely, I agree. We recognize that, and I think there's a value for both BLM and the county to see that through. We also presented, I think the last time I was here, we brought up an idea on the gravel pits that are out here off the old 8A. BLM hasn't done anything on that, but I'm just letting everybody know that we still have some interest in that. If there's any movement from the county to develop that into more of a recreation site, we've got a lot. There's a BLM section very close, so it's something that we could incorporate into the overall concept of that. We'll provide some federal funds, some federal in-kind contributions if there's any thoughts from the county moving forwards. So, and then also we do provide a number of community outreach opportunities throughout the year. We're planning the 6th grade environmental day, which will be sometime in May, and then the annual public lands day, which last year we did the Mill Creek tree planting. So that'll also be coming up in September timeframe. So that's a quick overview of our ongoing projects and some future projects. And if there's anything that of interest to anybody, I can answer questions.
I have a question.
Okay.
I had seen, actually had read it in the paper about the herpes breakout for the horses, wild horses. Are we having any of that?
What outbreak?
There's a herpes breakout in a bunch of horses over, I think, in the Reno, in that area. So I was just wondering, is that anything that is prevalent in the population within Lander County?
I'm not aware of any of that within our district.
Okay.
A lot of those around Reno are not even part of the federal. Those horses aren't part of the federal Wild Horse and Burro ownership.
What do they fall under if they're wild?
They're under this. Well, the state would have some jurisdiction over that, but not the Forest Service or
Okay,
BLM.
very good. Thanks.
Any other questions? I'll open it up for public comment if you have any questions for John or any comments. Okay, thank you so much for taking the time before us and updating us. We appreciate it. We are now under Assessors, number 5, discussion and possible action to approve or disapprove the contract between Pictometry International Corporation, Pictometry, and Lander County, and all other matters properly related thereto. Good morning, Laura.
Good morning, how are you? This contract is for a flyover that we want to do this spring. Actually, they're getting really close to gearing up for that. By signing on all the surrounding counties, we did get a discount because they're gonna do all of them at the same time. They're gonna do Humboldt, Elko, Eureka, Lander, Pershing, and I think, White Pine, but I'm not sure. So there's a little bit of a break there. And there's a grid in there that shows the area that we're going to be flying this year. This isn't going to be in direct conjunction with our new system, so we needed to get some stuff up to date that we haven't flown in a lot of years, about, I think since 2013, so it's been 6 years.
And I did see on the agenda request form that the DA has reviewed this,
Yes, ma'am, I have.
okay? So we don't have any problems
I
legally
didn't
with
see
it
any
at all.
problems, and I've discussed that with her.
Okay, and of course, Laura has the money in her budget.
I'll make a motion that we approve the contract between Pictometry International Corp. and Lander County.
I'll second.
Thank you, Judy made the motion, it was seconded by Kathy. Any other discussion?
And authorize the chair to sign.
And authorize the chair to sign.
Thank you. Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And does someone have an original for them?
Thank you so much, and that passes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Moving on to finance, number 7, discussion and possible action to approve or disapprove resolution number 2019-01, directing apportionment of marijuana establishment tax received in the month of January 2019 to the Lander Economic Development Authority Fund 015 and all other matters properly related thereto. This is what we did last year with the 88,000, right, that we got from the state. They went into this fund, right?
No, we put it into Fund 3 for the health nurse. Cindy Benson for the record.
Ah, yes,
So
thank
now
you.
we don't need to do that since the state's taking it back.
Yeah.
And what is 051?
It's 015.
015.
That's LEDA, Lander Economic Development Authority.
Cindy, this is just a yearly thing?
We get it every year, yeah. And
Okay.
that's about, for right now, that's what we get every year.
That's what
That was the amount that it was distributed to the counties that did not have the marijuana shops, if you remember.
No, yeah, I just couldn't remember
Yeah.
if it was just a yearly, quarterly, or what, but.
Yearly.
No, it's
Yeah.
annually, but
Annually.
the amounts, of course, may change and such, depending.
If we took this $88,000 and put it with the 100,000 that we have for grants, we'd have our grants covered without using general fund. That's my thought on it.
Totally up to the board. You can
Yeah.
do anything you want to with it.
Do you have any idea what LEDA would do with it?
Well, right now, their ending fund balance is only at a little over $26,000. And so every year, they get really, really, really close, a lot closer to not having a fund balance, so.
And I don't remember if LEDA asked for any grant?
Yeah, they did.
Okay, so this could actually,
We reduced it quite a bit,
okay.
yes.
I know we
What was-
reduced it,
oh,
but.
excuse me, I'm sorry. What amount did they ask for the grant?
I believe they asked for 20,000 and you guys granted them 4,000.
So instead of giving them the entire amount, why don't we use that? And give them 20,000 of it and hold the other aside for something that we might need in the future.
Could do that.
You certainly can divide it,
So
of what you want to do, but
I would
we
like
need
to
to
do that.
put it in some kind of a fund, that's all, of where you want to go with it.
So basically, we'd have to come back with a new resolution. So I make a motion that we bring this back with a resolution, directing $20,000 to the Lander Economic Development Authority with the remaining $68,235.29 to go into the general fund for future decisions.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved that we do the resolution with 20,000 to the Lander County Development Authority and the balance to general fund. Moved by Judy, seconded by Kathy. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I'm fine with the motion. What was it that we found when we went through the budget where you thought that we could fund these different agencies through our budget? Was it the last page, something about community support or something?
Community support, but we can't really do it
Okay.
after that, so we're looking
Okay.
at another area instead.
Okay. I just wanted to.
But we have the funds in community support,
Okay.
right? Any public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, and that passes. Thank you. Under Commissioners, number 8, discussion and possible action regarding current grant cap limits and to create new grant cap limits and all other matters properly related thereto.
So, during the budget workshop, this was discussed that you, the board would like to, revisit the grant cap that was put on last year, at $100,000. So that's why it's on here for your discussion and whichever way you'd like to go with that.
Cindy? As I recall, we actually did manage to just stay right almost, we were a little bit over the 100,000 cap, but just barely. So we've managed to, during the previous budget session, some of those grants were put into different accounts, were taken out of different accounts, is we didn't really go over the cap considerably, did we? Do you recall?
Cindy Benson for the record. Even though they're moved to different line items, they're still a grant.
Okay, so,
So yeah, we did go, I think it's somewhere around 190,000.
okay.
I've been reviewing, just going through the grants, reviewing them, and I think that we need to keep a cap on it and start paying better attention to organizations that keep coming back for us to fund their organization. I think that there's not a problem for us to get them and help them on their feet, but when we're giving them large amounts to keep going, that I don't think that that's, I mean, I think that they need to come together as their own organization and have the feet underneath them to keep going instead of us continually funding their programs, because then if there's problems and they fail, then we all lose. And so I just think that I would like to see them try to get their own bearings and their own feet. I don't mind helping, but to continually every year giving them large amounts of money, I think becomes ludicrous after a while. So I think that it's better tracking and watching what's going on. Just because we have a lot of money, I'd like us to keep the lot of money, and I don't mind helping, I do not at all, but at a point, they have to be able to sustain their own,
I would like
their
to
own
see
business.
an individual, a cap on every individual, and that each one could not go past a certain amount.
And which is also a good idea, so.
Well, the only thing about a big fat ending fund balance is it's a big target. We keep having big ending fund balances, you watch, the state will figure out ways to take unallocated money. That's my big concern about continually cutting the budget.
Ted, can they do that? So if we have money that we've received, we've invested, it's in investment accounts, can the state work around and take that money?
They can find a way around it, ultimately, if they have the votes.
So could we do other projects for the community as far as building different things for the entire community,
We can invest
utilizing
it.
that money?
There was an idea that came, I don't know what happened to it last year, we were gonna invest a large amount of the money and use the interest only as to give,
Grants?
Yes,
give
which
grants.
was a
And we
suggestion.
never did that, the treasurer never did that, but that's an excellent idea, because the money is put in an investment fund, and we tap into the, what we make, every year.
Yeah, and I had said off the net proceeds, I thought if we took like 3,000 and whatever the interest was off of that, we could
Right,
use
we
towards.
could put like $5 million in some fund.
Yeah, and then you always have that money, and
Right,
it's not the
and
taxpayer.
so there's
Yes,
things you can do
yes.
like that, but.
Cindy, can you clarify for me, when we were looking at these grants, and I remember us going almost 200,000, but I thought we had something that was a differential, actually, like, we were pretty close to 100,000 for the nonprofits and another 100,000 for some of them that were subdivisions or something like that. I know we were moving things around. So do we want to just increase our cap limits for this year to handle this? Or did we want to differentiate like 100,000 here and 100,000 there for the grants? I mean, they were in two separate classes for some reason, I remember. Does that ring a bell?
Well, we have the Austin Town Fund grants, we have the Battle Mountain Town Fund grants, and we have the Lander County grants.
Okay, so we were thinking of, like they said, the subdivisions basically with the government grants, and then the other 100,000 for our nonprofits and different clubs that comes before us and such.
And see, that's the problem I see. They're nonprofits, so they're not gonna make any money. They're barely, and I'm gonna use the kids club as an example. That is so valuable to this community. An emergency, they get called into work, they have babysitting, they have daycare, they have, the school going on, and I would hate to see them not get the money that they need because they're,
Not self-sustaining.
they're not self-sustaining and they can't make a profit, so that's my concern. That's one of my concerns about the.
For right now, we're still looking at something a little under 200,000 on the grants, and the fact that we just had the cap on the 100. So do we want to do two classes, or just do?
I think the two classes is a good idea. Can we do that, Ted?
Yeah, we can, and that's why I suggested at an earlier meeting that once we figure out how many grants you're giving, that I develop a resolution for each one so we can track each and every grant in the future.
Well, that sounds good.
And put conditions, your conditions that you want to establish on each and every grant.
We've already put conditions on tracking the money. They
Well,
have to come in.
We would have, it would be like a contract, it'd be by resolution, and they have to sustain those conditions each and every year.
Okay.
For them to renew a grant the next year.
This is a long way from where we were 4 years ago.
Yes.
And what about caps? I mean, like.
You can do that in the
Like a cap,
resolution.
a cap that would, for each grant, nobody's gonna get more than
You-
this amount of money, the highest
Commissioner,
is
you can
amount.
put any condition you want on that resolution. Any.
Okay, I'll take a shot at making a motion. I make a motion that we have two levels. We have the subsidiaries and we have the grants for the nonprofit folks, the issues that the businesses, the nonprofit businesses that go on. And I would like to set those limits at $100,000 for each level. I think that'll cover it.
Ted, do you need the motion to include you to direct?
I would like you to request resolutions for each and every grant.
If you request the DA?
And request the DA for a resolution. And see, my concern is, if the money's on a line item, we know where it's at. If it's in the ending fund balance, like I said, it's a target, especially with the climate we have at the state level today.
So we're talking a total amount of what, Art?
Would be 200,000.
200,000.
100 for the subsidies or the subsidiaries, and then 100,000 for the nonprofit. I think that's pretty generous.
Oh, yeah.
And then if there's
Now,
well,
on the 501c3, legally you're able to give as much money as you want, property, buildings. It's the other nonprofits that are problematic for us.
Any second?
I'll second that motion. I'd like to see in the future, if these grants come forth, have a designation whether they are a 503.
It's
Yeah.
very important. It's
Yeah.
very important
Yeah, exactly.
because the statute's clear that a 501c3, there's no cap, you can do whatever you want.
Now, we've run into problems where the paperwork wasn't done, but we knew that it was coming, and we approved money based on that.
And also within the resolution, that when they do turn in their applications, that if there's payroll of any type, that all payroll tax, current reports of payroll taxes for like the last 6 months are turned in with them. Because they can say, yes, we're current, but there may be a problem when we wouldn't know it. So I
Right, they
would
need to be
request-
compliant with all state and
Yes,
federal
yes.
laws and
I
regulations.
thought that was one of the conditions already that they.
It
It
needs
is.
to be.
It is,
Okay.
Very
they say it is, they say they are, but there's nowhere to say
Right.
that they are, so.
Who's actually confirming it, is what we're saying. Well, when they say they have insurance, they have to turn that in, so I guess they'd have to turn in something to prove they were compliant too.
We've never made them
Okay, but
comply
we can't.
with our exact standards for the last year. So this is a good beginning and a good start on what you want to accomplish by resolution.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for the 2 classes, up to 100,000 each, been moved by Art, seconded by Brian. Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, and that passes. Number 9, is Holly here?
I do not see her, she was, had the flu
Holly
yesterday.
Gatsky was supposed to be here, but I understood she was ill, so.
Yep.
Yeah, table.
We'll table that one, then move to number 10. Discussion and possible action regarding negotiations between Lander County and Nevada Division of Health as to which services will be provided by Nevada Division of Health and the addendum to the contract between the parties and all other matters properly related thereto.
Can I open that up now? Okay, in regards to this, I don't know how to do this, so bear with me, okay? I started doing some research to find out, the sustainability of having the state be our health nurse, and if we're gonna actually have a human body in our office. And at this point in time, we will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 6 offices within the state right now that are vacant and have been vacant for a while. And a few of them, they have no idea, they're not getting applications for their office to fill. So the chances of us getting one is going to be slim as well. So am I allowed to make a suggestion, or?
I believe that's okay, yeah.
My suggestion is that, so we are sustainable to have a health nurse here, that we reevaluate it to have our own health nurse to make sure that we have what we need for our community, because and Friday was the last day I called to check to make sure of the updates on these different offices. And for example, Fallon hasn't had a health nurse for 4 months, and they don't know when they're going to get one. And I just don't like to take the chance with our community of not having that service here and having to depend on the state to, if they can't have applications, to try to get us a nurse if they're not able to fill positions anywhere else. So,
Yeah, I agree, Kathy. I mean, it's just stating it again like I did the first go around is like, I just think we need to control it as our own, and then we control our own destiny rather than going into business with the state and having that exact problem. I think it's a disservice to our community.
Did we have any applications?
Yes, we do.
So we have people in town that could do the job. We don't have to worry about a floating nurse.
Right.
Right.
When our representative was here from the state, I think it was very misleading that she, you couldn't guarantee, but she certainly was very strong in her information to us that, oh yes, we would have one. So now that we have found out differently, it's back on the agenda to see if we would like to change anything.
So I was just gonna say that, Patsy, you know, she definitely misled us and guaranteed that, said, yes, we will have one. And if that's not the case, I'm with Kathy that we bring this back and reevaluate it.
We can't discuss it.
Or can we make a motion?
I don't know what,
Well, we just, no, I think what we do is we just don't take any action on this. And then we'll do another agenda item for a future.
Am I hearing
You're
that we were
drafting.
lied to by the state?
No,
Misled.
embellished.
That's what I was telling you, Art, you know, it's like complexities, that's the state for you, that's the state of Nevada, that's what I'm saying is.
Well, when Abby was under the state, we didn't have any problems.
But when they break, well, with that, and that's true, but when she leaves and they try to refill, that's where the problem lies.
I don't
Abby,
think we're
Ricardo,
gonna
just
have
a
a
minute,
problem
hold.
refilling.
Okay, do we have any more discussion before I open it up for public comment?
I don't.
Okay, public comment will open.
Abby Burkhart for the record. What was your question about when I was at the state?
You were here,
Yes, I was.
okay.
Did we have a problem?
But Keith can back me up on this. When I first started at the state, my first 6 to 8 months, I was in town 2 days a week because Winnemucca didn't have a nurse. And so I was going to Winnemucca, and then Winnemucca also covers Lovelock because they don't have a full-time health nurse. And so I was also traveling to Lovelock. And actually one day, Keith showed up to talk to myself and Jane Bianchi, asking where I'd been because the community wanted to know where the nurse was. Because it was announced that I was in my office, but I wasn't in my office. And nobody had communicated that with the county. That was when I very first started. One more thing that I would just like to bring up. Yesterday I was reading some things that there is a measles outbreak in Tahoe. Lots of people might think that that doesn't affect us, but if you travel there, anybody that travels there, they bring it home. We have people that don't vaccinate. Adults are now recommended to have boosters for MMR, and so if they haven't had that, they can be exposed. They bring it back to our community. We don't have a health nurse. You're waiting for the state to allocate somebody to come out here to set up your pod for vaccinations, to set up any medications or anything in the instance of an outbreak. So those are just some logistical things about having it at the state that you might want to consider. When the county took over, I was deputized as a 317 provider, which means I still get federal funding from the CDC. They send out those vaccinations in an outbreak. They send out our flu vaccinations for the flu pod every year, even though we're county and not state any longer. So there's no breakdown, and I don't have to wait. I just call the immunization program and say, hey, this is what's going on, and I work
And the
with
hospital
epidemiology.
can't do that? Don't we have an emergency doctor?
What I'm saying is, I don't know about the hospital, but what I'm saying is those vaccinations just come to me at no cost. That's a federal thing that comes
In an outbreak, yes.
Yeah, in an outbreak situation, and every year we get flu pod vaccination for free the same way. So we're not relying on, the hospital allocating funds or the county allocating funds, waiting for that.
And the underprivileged that are Medicaid, Medicare, that may not feel comfortable or think that they have the money to go to the hospital, even though they can under Medicare and Medicaid, they may, there's some people who just don't, that use the health nurse's office for those kind of things.
Who is the doctor that's in charge of emergencies? Because surely we have a doctor assigned.
I don't know that. I was the county public health officer.
We have one that's contracted with the sheriff's department, but,
In case of an emergency, we don't have a doctor assigned? I thought that in the back of our book, with all the boards and so on, that we have a doctor assigned to.
Well, I think.
Yeah, it used to be Dr. Peters, I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is something, like before, is this agenda item itself, through the discussion, I don't think we want to take any action on it, but then bring this back to discuss
Judy,
continuing
quick
with the.
question. You guys are getting into the weeds now of a discussion, and we can't really discuss the county health nurse.
no, we totally can't. But, we don't have to take any action at all on it. We can just direct them to do it on the agenda.
Yes.
Right,
for what we
exactly.
want. Okay. Any other public comment on item number 10? Yes, Mr. Blake?
Jason Blake for the record from the hospital. I sent you all an email yesterday afternoon, and I hope I explained myself in a positive way. I support movement for a strong and robust community health program. It's needed to be able to provide care and services to Medicaid, underserved or underprivileged people is critical. They need to have that opportunity. I just want to make sure that I open myself for any question or comment from you guys as to what my stance is. I don't want to create a competitive environment between the community health program and our county hospital district. And what I mean by that is that if we see patients and provide services to patients that have full means to pay, they have all opportunity, they're covered by insurance, they've got everything going for them, that we're referring them to another source of health care rather than putting them through the community nursing or health program, if that makes sense.
Have we been doing that? Have we, that statement you just made? Have we
My
been doing that,
understanding
Ken?
is that we have. And my I guess naivety comes through on this. The hospital has been kind of fronting the expenses for those medications and for those services without knowing how it was utilized. Because we at the hospital, we provide vaccinations, we provide other medical materials to the county at our cost with 0% markup. And we do that because we support you. We really want this to work. We want the county to be strong in that area. But now I found that we may have been giving some of those services to people that should have been coming to our clinic.
Okay, with that information, then I guess we're going to most certainly say, I hope that you can make it back when we have it on the agenda, so we can discuss in full what we need to do to tighten up anything that we're doing with the county nurse.
You bet. And if you guys have any questions, you have my email information now from my message last night, or you can call me on the phone, and I'm open to speak with you and answer questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving on to number 11. Austin, do you have Mr. Ramus there yet?
He just stepped in, and he'll be out in a few minutes, and I will grab Liz too.
Okay, let's move on to number 12. Discussion and possible action to approve or disapprove the renewal of a contract with Rex Massey, DBA Research and Consulting Incorporated, in the amount not to exceed $15,000 for 1 year, and all other matters properly related thereto.
This is something I think that's of the utmost importance for Lander County is to keep Rex. He's been on board for a long time, and the last conversation that I was in on with Rex, he has some really good ideas for Lander County.
What's Rex doing for us now? He used to handle Yucca Mountain.
He's our master plan guy. He keeps us going down the legal road and what's best for the county.
Commissioner, we need we need to catch up with some of our zoning regulations, and Rex has the experience and the training in that area, and he's, we have somewhat of a committee that we discuss this and what he's got put in front of the planning commission, and he's got some great ideas, and we just need to catch up with things we've been doing wrong for years, and he's going to make those those additions to the master plan.
I had been in a meeting where he was giving, at the planning board meeting, where he was giving some information and making some recommendations and things like that. And my only holdup was when he discussed having the contractors remove some of the sidewalks and things because it was too expensive for the contractors to put the curbs and sidewalks in those areas. So that's one thing that is a concern, that our kids have a place on a road when we're putting in, we have a master plan of houses that are gonna go in, that we make sure that there's a place for our kids to be safe on, sidewalks, and and I had questioned him about this, and he had just said sometimes that extra expense is too expensive for the contractors. If there's only 5 houses going in instead of 50, it's, too expensive to always do that. So that's just my only concern with that, is that we pay attention to that when that's happening.
We had a meeting last week, and I think he's readjusted his feelings about the sidewalks.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I think on that note, that is one thing that's in the ordinance, I believe, is in subdivisions, you do have the curb and gutter. It is required, one of those things, so we need to.
There's ways around it, but.
Well, yeah,
you're generally
and I
right,
think that
but
needs to be cleaned up as well.
Yeah, the people that have been building have been going around those, and that's what we're gonna try to correct.
Yeah, that's a big concern of Rex, is that people have slithered through the ordinances and the codes and got away with not doing what they really should be responsible for. And I'm glad you brought up the serpentine sidewalks, because you know what happened since they put those on Broad Street? People walk in the street.
I'll make a motion that
Day after day, day after day. And the bicycles are on the sidewalk and the people walk in the road.
He suggests actual paths that go on the side, that they have all over Reno, that he says works wonderfully.
Asphalt.
So he has some good suggestions to get around what's been gotten around.
Okay, very good.
And that might be a good opportunity to provide a paving program for people that need paving in town. I know I'd like to have some asphalt around my house. I'd pay for it.
The other thing is he does a lot of comments for us when requested for our environmental assessments and things like that. So he's used in a lot of areas and recognizing grants that were put in for and such. So, and there's no change in the contract, is that correct?
That's right, he's an asset to our community.
Same amount and everything, okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the renewal of the contract with Rex Massey, DBA Research and Consulting Inc. in the amount not to exceed $15,000 for 1 year.
I will second that.
Thank you. Moved by Art, seconded by Judy. Any other discussion? Public comment? All those in favor? Aye. Aye.
Take a break before we start 11. We'll probably be here for 2
Okay, we're going to take a very quick break and then start on number 11. We're calling the board back to order. Number 11. Austin, you're on okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. Discussion and possible action on whether a majority of the members of the Lander County Board of County Commissioners deem it to be in the best interest of Lander County and of the Lander County Water and Sewer District Number 2, the said district be merged, consolidated, or dissolved, and if a majority of Lander County Commissioners agree, to then formally request of the Board of Trustees of the Lander County Water and Sewer District Number 2 a resolution agreeing to the merger, consolidation, or dissolution, and all other matters properly related thereto. Okay, with that, one of the reasons this has come on is because the last request that came before us for the additional funds for meters and the sewer situation we had down there, right? And we didn't take any action on it. We wondered whether that would end it or whether they had a lot more problems down there that would need a lot of extra money to fix. So the consideration was put on the agenda for us to take a look at it and see what we might do as far as the whole, I want to say, GID, or whether we wanted it to be part of Lander County, or what the consideration was before we finished up with our budget on the amount of funds of what we were going to do. So this is the first discussion item, actually, of where we are. Keith, anything you want to fill us in before we start?
I think you covered it pretty well. It's the money that's a concern. 4 years ago, I think, or 5 years ago, it was up at $6 million, and then the county paid it, and bailed them out, and it appears that it's going down the same road where the county's gonna get these millions of dollars in, requests for projects. And I think it's a good time to discuss it and ask the board, if the commissioners are interested in it, it's a good time to ask the Water Sewer 2 Board if they're interested in disbanding and giving it over to the county.
Okay, with that, it's probably not fair to start right in without knowing some of the conditions of Austin, and of course, you can well imagine it's really old. So therefore, some of the areas we're talking about that haven't even been discovered yet, that we know definitely need improvements down there, there's just no question about it. And so with that, if Bert is there, I'm gonna ask for a little information from Public Works to kind of give us an idea on maybe what kind of condition that you have run into when your employees are assisting them. Bert, do you have any information for the board?
Yeah, I'm down here, Patsy. Bert Ramus for the record. So just so you're aware, Patsy, I know that you had brought up to me that they cambered some of the sewers here and that there were some that had completely deteriorated. So to be clear, I don't think that they had deteriorated. I believe that some of the sewers in the community are still old rock sewer. It's how they built them in the past. There's short sections of them. Some of them we're aware of, and it's just how the system is. I don't know necessarily that it's a deterioration as much as it's just the age.
So there's actually no piping at all, they're just running down regular rock?
Like the Romans did.
Yeah, like the Romans did, okay. So the health department, let's get away with that until we have a break, and then what, we get penalties for the break and then have to put in piping?
No, the health department really doesn't have much say on that. I mean, it's contained. It's not a loose sewer leak. It's just how it's been done for many years. A lot of old pipe in the ground. Is asbestos, and that's perfectly acceptable as well. It's maybe not how's the common practice for now, but it's not unacceptable.
And somewhere in my memory, I'm thinking, and it might have been Patsy said that if you have a sewer problem, it's $15,000 a day fine.
If the sewage is still coming out, yes.
I experienced this in Tonopah one time, and the sewers backed up even going up the hill. So, and it was in residential and commercial, so I don't know what Austin wants to do, but we need to get this done.
So my question to start with is the Lander County Water and Sewer District 2, what specifically do they want? Do they want us to take them over, or, they want to dissolve and make it a part of?
It's Commissioner, it's kind of unfair to ask them before this board makes a decision on whether it's in the best interest of the county to ask them, because that's all we can do is ask them. So,
okay.
Well, I didn't know if they had made any kind of indication that maybe that's what they did.
We didn't want to put the cart before the horse. Procedurally, we have to formally request what they'd like to do, and if they'd like to merge, consolidate, and or just dissolve, or hybrid of one of the three of them. If they still want to participate in some way in this, so that's what, if you guys believe that it's in the best interest of the county to ask them one or all of those three, then we would send a letter to them and formally request, and then they can discuss it, because otherwise they'd be violating.
So one of my other questions is, do they have any employees, or is it all volunteer?
No, they have employees.
Okay.
The board is volunteer.
Right.
Right, but the
they
district
have-
itself has employees.
That's what I thought, they had some people.
So the $6 million that was spent before, what was done with that?
Paid off the loans that they had taken.
to fix, to repair stuff?
No, some of it was for a new sewer pond or something, was it not? I mean, there were several loans that they had out throughout the years. And actually, this was some time ago, I wanna say at least 10 years ago.
Yeah,
We got some net proceeds and we paid off Kingston, we paid off $6 million at Austin, and we wiped everything out. So that they wouldn't have to do that, cause the difficult part is, they're eligible for grants, but a portion of the grants, 10 or 20%, depending on what type of a grant, has to come back for them to collect. So if it's a CDBG or whatever it is telling them, you've got to increase your rates to pay for this, because they can't pay for it by themselves.
and they don't have, it's
We
not a
don't have the
choice.
people.
They don't, it's not a choice, if you get it, that CDBG grant, you have to, if they say raise it $20 a month, you have to do that. That's part of the grant requirements.
And Austin charges,
Frank Whitman here for the record, for Austin.
Just a minute, I don't have public comment yet, just a minute, boys.
Very good.
Austin charges if you have a water line in front of your property and you're not using it. Just because the water's accessible, they're gonna charge you. That's how they're trying to fund, they're trying to find ways to fund it. I think there's some people down there that don't pay it though, aren't there?
I believe so.
They protest that.
Do we know how much they generate each year, revenue-wise?
No, we wouldn't have any idea,
No,
that
we-
we'd have to go into the books to.
Which obviously,
To
it's,
find out.
it's not going to be at a profit if they can't.
It has never been profitable per
Right.
se, no, but the difficult thing is, with the GID, of course, and you have to have, those are elected positions, and it's very difficult, there's not a lot of people that take the time to be on the water board, so they've not had regular meetings several times too, which means the regular business and things they need to do isn't always done in a monthly manner, and that's, in fact, NACO has one of our BDRs in actually is a bill, in hopes that the different counties can appoint people on the GIDs rather than always be elected. And they don't have to follow term limits and things like that, because you find the same people that wanna volunteer and all of a sudden they can't, and a small place like Austin can't always find the people that wanna volunteer. Even Humboldt said they had to take over, 4 or 5 of their GIDs
Yes.
this last couple of years, because they just didn't have enough people to sit on the board,
I believe
so that's a
Lovelock
difficult
same
thing
way.
too. Yeah, and of course, the other thing is, if we do take it over, we can have an advisory board, like we do airport boards, we can have the local input from Austin, they still can have a board, they just would be an advisory board to the county, and the county can use our county employees. We have certified people here under Public Works that, they're paying extra people to do that because they don't have certification. And sometimes those people, in the minutes I read, where one of them didn't even, got sick or hurt or something and couldn't even do the proper reporting, and of course, that may be his fault, he was contracted, but it falls back on the water and sewer district to get it done, and so they're the ones that are in trouble because they contracted and the contractor couldn't fulfill it. I mean, it just goes on and on.
So if there were fines accumulated by this water district, Ted, would we be responsible for them?
No, unless we took it over.
Okay, so if we didn't take it over and there was an emergency, the sewer erupted or whatever, and it's $15,000 a day, how would the state ever get their money from?
They'd be coming in front of you and asking you for money.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, it's our county, they're our people,
Right.
and we should take care of them, so it's
All
like,
the-
whatever the best way to do that is.
They
not-
deserve full services.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
Austin
absolutely.
deserves full services, and they're not getting it. And that's bottom line.
So I really, my opinion is that we can approach them to possibly dissolve the, district and create a board and absorb it into the county.
Is that a question?
So,
No, it's just a comment.
Yeah,
I
you're
have,
right.
I have a question, if we didn't dissolve, what would the merger and consolidation, how would that work?
I'd have to look into that further, I don't know, Commissioner. It's,
Yes, I have that same question. What's the Berninger calls it, how do they all differ from one another?
don't know.
Okay.
I think it would muddy the waters,
It,
the merging
would,
and
a merger and
consolidating.
a consolidation would be, you might be able to dissolve and merge, or dissolve and consolidate, but if you would just merge or consolidate without a dissolution, it would be problematic still.
Okay, so
Okay.
what we need to do is to decide what's best for the county. That's
today.
That's the mission on this
What's
item.
in the best interest of Lander County?
Okay.
Do you want me to open up for public comment now?
I
so
just
we
have
can
one
get
more
some
question
input
and I'll
from
get-
Austin?
Well, let me one more quick.
Oh,
So,
just a minute. Go ahead,
do they have any employees that we would absorb to make sure that their employees, if they have some, that if they have employees that work for that district, that are paid employees, that we absorb them if that, something like this happens to make sure that no one loses their job?
There's ways to do that. If they're dissolved and we take it over, we'd have to follow our policies and procedures, but I'm sure it's your department. You guys can do what you want.
Well, I just want to make sure that they're, that they don't have an employee or two.
I mean, there's ways to protect them as long as we follow the
But
policies
it's still
and
not open
procedures.
for public comment yet.
Okay.
So one more thing on that note is I do think that it is the responsibility of the board to make the decisions what's in the best interest of the county. And Austin is part of this county, they deserve every right and entitlement that the rest of the county receives. And if it's in their best interest to take this over and take care of the water system, I'd say go for it, because they need it.
Well, just for the record, if every time they have come before us and asked for something, we have given it to them.
Yeah, we have.
We truly have, and we are concerned, and we know that one way or another, like you said, it's part of the county, and we're gonna take care of them, so what's the best way that we can take care of them? So, with that, we want HR, and Elizabeth wanted to add something, and we'll open it up for public comment in a moment.
Elizabeth Morella, as far as the employee side, there is an employee, but it's my understanding he is not on our payroll. But he does reap some of the benefits as far as like insurance stuff for AFAC and that, but we're gonna look into it more, but I don't think he is on our payroll.
He has also turned in his resignation, is my understanding.
Not that I know of.
Okay, well, Austin told me that, and then there is a part-time clerk in the office with no benefits. So that's
I
something.
I don't think they're on our payroll
No,
system though.
no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Okay, Austin, we've opened it up for public comment for you.
Frank Wither for the record. Just a couple of items for your information. The $5 million in the past that the county paid off our bonds was, we had an arsenic problem, and we were mandated to either build an arsenic treatment plant or find a solution. And the board at that time did find a solution, and that is we drilled a few more wells, and we blend our water so that we are within the standards that the government mandated for safe drinking water. And that's what that money was about. The second item I wanted to point out was that we had some people on that board who had long experience with our water department, but because of term limits, we've lost that talent. And I think that the new board, it's not that they can't figure it out. I certainly don't mean it disparaging. We don't have the long institutional memory right now that we used to have there. I think that's been a problem for them, a stumbling block. And lastly, the additional monies needed to immediate repairs on Main Street coming up next year. If the GID was to have to assume that amount, over a 40-year loan with the Department of Agriculture, and that money is available, but what it would do to our rate structure could be really cost prohibitive, of doubling, tripling, even 4 times our water rates here in town for our small economic base. Just so you understand some of the other pieces of the puzzle here. That's all I have. I think some other people here may want to comment too.
Thanks, Frank.
Okay. Any other public comment, Austin?
This is Louis Lanny down here. On the $5 million, actually, we were able to spend $4 million of it, and Lander County took back $1 million I was gonna use for water meters. But it did clean out all of our debts, so the water department was debt-free. And I fell into the category of term limits after 42 years, so. We live and learn, I guess.
Thank you, Louis. I'm sorry, did someone else want to speak?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, well, as far as the board, we don't have to necessarily make a motion today if it's something that we've discussed now, and we'd like to take it back to the Austin Water and Sewer District Number 2 and ask them for their input and for them to write a letter to us on what they feel.
We have to make decisions.
We have to
first.
have a decision.
We have to make a decision?
Yes.
They would be violating open meeting laws, otherwise, there's no issue unless you make it an issue.
So we have to make a decision one way or the other?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that Lander County Board of County Commissioners deem it in the best interest of Lander County to absorb the Lander County Water and Sewer District Number 2 in Austin and
What do you say, dissolve the GID?
and request them to dissolve their GID.
Yes.
Did you catch all that, Ted?
Pardon me?
Did you catch all that?
Yeah, let me see. And did you include to formally request of them?
Yes, to dissolve the GID,
Good.
okay.
Okay. I'm good with it. That'll allow us to write a letter to them, formal letter.
Okay, so it's actually the beginning.
This is the beginning.
Absolutely, it's gonna take a while, okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, Judy made the motion and Brian seconded that. Any other discussion here?
The one thing I want to say that came up in conversation with the people from Austin is rather unique and maybe not completely accurate, but the statement was that Lander County receives net proceeds of mines money, and it's for all of Lander County, and that's always stuck in my mind. And the money comes through the county. We're responsible for the money, so the county has to make the decision on where it's used. But that's a very interesting aspect of the point of view that some of the people in Austin have. I just wanted to mention that.
Any other public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, there you have it, the beginning. And we write the letter and they get to respond.
Yes.
Okay,
Do we need to, you're gonna go ahead and do this?
Keith and I will
Okay,
we'll
okay.
get together and.
Because
Number
nobody
13.
asked you to do it, Ted, and that's the proper procedure.
So
I'm stepping up.
You're man.
I do have a question. We write the letter, and what if they come back and say no?
Then we don't do it. And then you have to decide whether you're gonna give them the money.
The power of the purse.
correspondence, number 13. Correspondence, reports, potential upcoming agenda items.
I got a text from Ira Hansen, there's a gun bill, 8 o'clock Monday morning, anti-gun bill on the legislature floor.
We're on agenda items.
Oh, I thought we were on correspondence.
The health
We are,
nurse,
we are,
the
yeah.
community health nurse for the
Yeah.
next agenda.
Okay, that one.
We also have a lot of contracts, just to forewarn you, a lot of contracts coming up. And so over the next 2 or 3 months, you'll be seeing a lot of contracts come across your desk there. An upcoming item, I just, so I'm clear on it, you would like an agenda item to discuss and possibly take action to put the county health nurse back in place and not have a state health nurse. Okay, that, and then, Commissioner, I do need to ask, when we're finished, we need to have a litigation meeting with the commission.
Okay, in the correspondence, there was a couple different things that I hope that you all have noticed. Anyway, one was from an attorney firm that was talking about the opioid epidemic and whether we wanted to go in on the lawsuits of that, and that was discussed with our district attorney some time ago to see if we had lost enough people to go into the lawsuit and such on it.
On the opioids?
Right, and so whether we wanted to put this on the agenda and have everybody discuss that or not is a question.
Yeah, I think it's more of a question if you just wanna do it on general purposes because of the opioid addiction in the United States. Because it hasn't touched us that directly, but it's a national,
It's a national
national
emergency,
issue.
yes.
You may wanna join it
Okay,
for
so
those
we may
reasons.
want to put that on as an agenda item.
I just saw a documentary on the opioid crisis, and 1/3 of the whole crisis has to do with one medication that was made for the last 2 weeks of life when you have cancer, and specifically for cancer patients, and they were giving it out. The corporation they were $22 billion in 2 years. The people involved in the corporation have all pled guilty to pushing drugs, basically.
And Lander County has had more issues with that as far as accidental overdoses than you would realize. So it has been made an impact on families within Lander County.
But it's not the same issue, Kathy.
What do you mean? So make me.
I mean, it's just a regular Oxycontin overdose, rather than some doctor selling all these illegal drugs in town.
Okay.
Anything
So
else
it's
on
a
agendas?
peripheral issue,
Okay.
you know, that's in every community. It's not running rampant. We don't have.
No, I understand.
We
I
don't
understand what you're
have
saying.
four doctors on the four corners with a pharmacy below.
We don't have what Winnemucca had, what Elko had, what.
Oh, no, that's not what I mean, but when I'm looking at an opioid epidemic, I'm also looking at the people who've overdosed, even though it's not, so to speak, the doctors within our community, but there are victims within our community that have died from it, so they, you know.
Okay, so put it on the agenda so we can discuss it. Okay, and
And-
you have the information in their eaglet prints or whatever it is, okay.
I don't think you can separate the opioid crisis from mental health. I think
Oh,
if people get addicted on the drugs,
Okay,
they need
but
mental health.
We're not discussing that right now. So if there's no more agenda items, correspondence, I will move into public comment. For non-agendized items only, persons are invited to submit comments in writing and/or attend and make comments on any non-agenda item at the board meeting, if any, and discussion of those comments at the discretion of the board. All public comment may be limited to 3 minutes per person, again at the discretion of the board. Reasonable restrictions may be placed on public comments based upon time, place, and manner, but public comment based upon viewpoint may not be restricted. Any public comment? Austin, any public comment?
No.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second. Aye.
Art moved, Brian seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, over. Okay, legal meeting.